All righty. Hello, everybody. I believe I got everyone in. Welcome to our August community meeting. For today's meeting, we will start with community celebration announcements, then product roadmap updates from Allison. Next, we'll go over a couple exciting new updates in cloud. Nathan's going to be doing a core expectations in cloud demo. And then Anthony will demo the GX scheduler. Then after that, we're going to spend the rest of the meeting celebrating the launch of GX Core with a live core GX Core demo from Nevin. I have some announcements related to Core around updated support posture and an AMA, and with some closing notes. But the star of the show today really is the demo of GX Core that we're all very, very excited about the launch of and to show it off. So, okay, let's get started. So first of all, I just want to take some time to recognize folks in our community who are supporting other members in the community in the past couple months. Excuse me. So like Holger and Mike have done just that, answering user questions in the GX Discourse forum. I'd additionally like to shout out to some folks who have provided some very valuable feedback related to GX Core, both in the past couple months, but also before that, kind of as we've been working towards this big launch. The feedback was extremely helpful as we worked our way towards this. So thank you so much to everybody on this list for all of your support. Okay, now I'm going to hand things off to Allison, who will be giving us the product update.
Everyone, so my name is Allison. Excited to share some of the updates that we have had in product. We've done a lot of things since the last update. A lot of it Molly has already mentioned, so I'm going to go with those quickly because we're going to have more details coming right after. So GX Core 1.0 launched, super exciting. A lot of work from the team. We also have more expectations in GX Cloud now. We're at 44 expectations in the UI, 47 expectations in the gallery. We've added scheduling in the UI as well, and in a cloud-only deployment, which allows you to run and run scheduled expectations directly from cloud without the need of an agent. But if you want to, you can also have that. And then easier asset management with table introspection. What that means is it's easier for you to add assets directly as when you connect to a data source. We bring that list directly for you, and you can add one or multiple assets at once. And excited to share also that coming soon, there's a lot of things happening. We're introducing custom SQL expectations to the cloud experience. I'm really excited about that to increase the flexibility for users to set up expectations in cloud. Dynamic parameters, which is a way for users to essentially adapt or make it easier for them to maintain their expectations because the parameters change according to how your data evolves. New data sources. So Databricks SQL, if some of you have already logged into the application, there's a coming soon there already for Databricks SQL. We're super excited to bring that coming soon as a new data source that's supported in cloud. Email alerts, alerting through email is also coming very soon. It's easier for you to just to be able to get alerted on issues in your data. And then just a larger effort into making it easier or simpler to use GX Cloud. And so we're simplifying the domain model or how we present the domain model of GX Cloud in the UI, primarily with removing the concept of checkpoints and suites. And so this, all this work is coming soon. So excited to share more later on. Yep, back to you, Molly.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Allison. Okay. Now we're moving on to core expectations in cloud. I assume you will want to be sharing your screen, so I'll go ahead and stop sharing. All right.
All right, hello everybody. Yeah, so this is what we're calling core expectations in cloud, and what that essentially means is that all those expectations that are available in the open source library, or the vast majority. I think Allison alluded to there might be three in open source that are not currently in cloud. Um, they have now been made available in the cloud product. So these are the expectations that you could find in the gallery here. Um, if you were looking for expectations when using the open source API, whenever you're in GX Cloud, you can click plus new expectation uh, anywhere in the app, and you'll be presented with this new expectation drawer. And now I think previously we had about 13 in here, and now we've got a new design in this drawer for ways to search and select the relevant expectation that you need. We've got this keyword search ability. So if I just type max, it'll filter down to expect column maximum to be between. And then we've also got this concept of data quality issues. So if you know what types of issues you want to solve through expectations, you could use this drop down and find groups that correspond to that data quality issue. So here I've got expect column max to be between. We've got this new card in the drawer as well that will give a little bit more descriptive information about what the expectation really represents. And this is also all pulled from open source, so it's that's the source of truth here. It's the core of the product. We've got help text for each of the fields that you can fill out when defining your expectations. And then, as we had been in the past, we're pulling metrics in. So you select a column. If you've already run the metrics on your data asset, you'll get some pre-populated values there in the field in the form. And then, yeah, that's bringing core expectations into cloud. We've got 44 now available in the drawer, and should be, a big step forward in helping you create a shared understanding about your data with your team. So, thanks everyone. Any questions
Uh,
in the chat? I'll answer those there.
awesome. Thanks so much, Nathan. All right, now Anthony,
Sure.
do you?
I would love to share a little bit about the new scheduling features in GX Cloud. Can everybody see my screen over here?
Yep.
Yeah. Great. So Nathan showed a little bit about the expectations, but what I'll be doing here in this window is I'm going to be creating a new expectation. I've already got the metrics for this data asset, and I'm going to show you how to create a schedule. So I'm going to pick a column. Sugar sounds good to me. I'm going to save that. And now we have the expectation was added. And you may have noticed this when Nathan was doing his presentation too, but automatically you have a schedule set up here where the next run is coming up in the next hour. If you want to pause that schedule, you can just click this button on and off right here. And if you want to edit the schedule, you have a few options. You can change the frequency, and you can change the start time of the next run, and any of that will be updated in this little bar here, so you know when the next run is going to be. Yeah, and so this will run the validation associated with this data asset and this expectation suite. Obviously, we don't want to wait an hour to see this one run, so I already ran one before. I set this one up to run every hour, and the validations that were run with the schedule have a little run by GX scheduler icon, so you know which ones were run that way. And then I ran just before this meeting one without the scheduler, so you see that the icon is not there. So you can see what ran on the schedule and what didn't. Yeah, so super easy to get set up and started with. Just a couple of things about it here that it's super easy to set up. You saw it basically didn't need to do anything and only a couple of clicks to edit. We feel like it's you can really get to business impact quicker by getting these set up. Since you're already in the expectation suite drawer, you don't need to drop into your orchestrator, set up a new step in your DAG, for example. It's just all right there in Great Expectations when you're adding your expectations. Couple of common questions that we get. So if you have existing suites, there's a pause schedule that's added. You can always just turn that on. You can go that and configure it, frequency and all that in the UI if you like. If you are already using Airflow or something like that to orchestrate, you can continue to use that. You can also use GX Cloud scheduling on certain assets. Won't really interfere. You can also migrate over bit by bit, totally up to you. And then if you are using the Python API, suites will be created with a pause schedule. You can just go into the UI and enable that if you'd like. And then there's more info on the blog post and in our documentation. And I will take questions in the chat. I'll be here to answer all those. Thanks a lot. Oops.
Great. Thank you so much, Nathan and Anthony, for those exciting GX Cloud updates. Very exciting to see. We're now going to transition to GX Core, GX 1.0 for the rest of the meeting. So the release of GX Core represents a significant milestone for us. There was a comprehensive code overhaul designed to enhance simplicity and ease of use. So the team's been working really diligently to streamline GX, making it more intuitive and powerful. So this new version introduces substantial improvements, making it easier for users to work with Great Expectations. You can read a bit more about it in some of the recent blog posts that we've posted, one about kind of the philosophy behind 1.0, and then one about the launch itself, which will be added to the chat here. Yeah, so with that, I'm going to hand this off to Nevin, who's going to give us a live demo of GX Core.
Hey everyone, I'm just going to expand a little bit on what Molly just said to introduce GX Core to you before we get into a demo. But just to be clear, first of all, we're really excited that GX Core is now out for everyone to use. GX OSS is now GX Core, so don't worry about losing anything there. We're now calling it GX Core. And as Molly said, the 1.0 change is really focused on simplifying the API and improving the documentation. I'm going to demo some of the changes we've made here today, but we do encourage you to explore our docs to see what else has changed in the product. We're also continuing development, so we have a fully stable version out now, but we will also be working on improvements along the way as well. So this is something we're actively developing. You might be asking why we made some of these changes. Well, we've been building GX Core now for a little over 6 years. And when we first started out, it was very much an open-ended tool. We wanted to see how the community would engage and use the product. But now with our experience, we believe it's really empowered us to be more opinionated on the best way to do things. So this is our version of our take on how you should best use the tool. GX Core, to no surprise, is still all about expectations. Our expectation gallery, as we've talked about, now has 47 expectations. We'll link the expectation gallery in chat as well. But they're all there for you to use to address a variety of data quality issues. They're now fully typed, and that includes things like name autofill and parameter hints if you're using GX in an IDE. And if you're looking for something a little bit more bespoke that our expectation gallery doesn't address, you still have the ability to create custom expectations. Data validation is also greatly simplified. All you have to do now is create a batch of data using a batch definition. specify the suite of expectations, or maybe just one expectation, depending on, your use case. And you run the validation definition on the set of data. I'm going to show you exactly what all this means in just a moment. So actually, you know what? Let's just jump right into it. I'm going to now demo what GX Core 1.0 looks like. And in fact, this is going to be a live coding demonstration. So you know how those can go sometimes, but you got to be bold about it sometimes. So here we go. GX Core, installs the same way as we have been for a long time. It's a simple pip command. If you have any dependencies, you can still specify them. Today, we're going to be using an example with Postgres. So I'm going to install or use the SQL Alchemy dependency package. But, you can, if you're using Snowflake or something like that, that's where you specify it. I've already installed it so that we don't have to sit and wait for it. We'll start with the simple import command. And we're also going to import our expectations as well. Okay, and just as you might expect, we're going to start with a data context. For those of you who are not familiar, a data context is how GX's configuration is stored either locally within your file system, or it could be ephemeral, or it could be in the cloud. Today, we're going to use a file mode, so we're just going to specify mode equals 5. And close the quote, it'll work. All right. First thing we're going to do is connect to a data source, and this is quite simple. We call context.datasources, add Postgres, because we're using Postgres here today. We'll give it a name, and we're going to add a connection string. Now, this connection string I'm using today, I'm just going to point this out. We now have a Postgres database that we can all use. It's a sample database that we've set up for our workshops. I'll plug our workshops now. Look on our website if you want to join our workshops. But this is read-only. You're free to use it. You can query and use some of the data to experiment within GX as well. So just as easy as that, we're creating a data source here. Now we can create an asset. An asset is just accessing the data source we just created, and we'll call add table asset, give it a name, and we'll give it point it to the table name as well. This table name lives within our data source. And no surprise here, we're going to be using New York City taxi data as our sample data. So 2 lines of code, we have a data source and a data asset. And by running this, your context now has directly connected to your data source. I'll point out as well, if you have any questions about what we're doing here today, we do have a lot to cover sort of in the live coding portion, but any questions, please throw them in the chat. We have a large contingent of GXers here who will be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have, including some who have been working very diligently on some of the changes that we've been looking at here today. Okay, so we've created a data source, a data asset. Now we'll create a batch definition, and this is just how you will be defining the data within your data asset that you'll want to test. So we'll call asset.add batch definition. And here you can do a number of different things. You can either add a batch definition for the whole table, or you can add a batch definition for a subset of your data. For our starting example, we'll use the whole table. After that, we can create an expectation. So just as easy as calling gxe dot, and here you would specify the expectation you would want to use. I'm going to use expect column max to be between. I'm going to specify a column within my database table that I want to check. So in this case, I'm going to use passenger count. And I'm going to check that the passenger count column in our database table never has a value greater than 4. So I'll specify the max value here of 4. And before I move too much further, if you're not familiar with the data set, this is a sample of New York City taxi cab data from, I think, 2019, something like that. And this is open source, is free for you to use. Is an example we love to use here at GX because it's easy to understand, and you can experiment really well with different expectations and different things in GX. So, so we're saying here that for any given taxi cab ride, there should be no more than 4 passengers, because a taxi should have no more than 4 passengers in it. So we'll specify that expectation. And in order to run a validation, we'll just get our actual batch of data. So we'll call batch definition dot get batch. So we have our set of data, and now we can simply view the results. So we'll run batch dot validate. We'll pass in the expectation we just created. And you can see here with 9 or so lines of code, it's greatly simplified now. You don't have to do a lot of tinkering. With 9 lines of code, you can run a very simple expectation. On this batch of data, we've run the expectation for this column max to be between. We specified that the value should never be greater than 4, but our success rate is actually false. This expectation is actually failing. And that's because there are some values in our table that have some rows in our table that have a value of 6. So again, if you're familiar with taxis in New York City, some taxis are actually not just simply sedans, but minivans, and minivans can hold up to 6 passengers. So we've made a little bit of a mistake in our definition of our expectation here, where we set the max value of 4. But we can update that really quickly and easily. All I have to do is set the max value in our expectation to 6, and then we can rerun our expectation. And just as we expect, our expectation is now passing. We've expected our value to never be greater than 6. And in fact, our observed values are 6. So just as easy as that. Like I said, 9 lines of code, we're running an expectation in a most basic example is just as easy as that. Now, that's the easiest case. What if you wanted to create a suite of expectations so that you're running a set of expectations on your data and not just one? Well, again, it's quite easy. All you have to do is first we'll define a suite. And we just call context.suites.add. And we'll give our expectation suite a name. Call it suite. So now we have an empty suite in our data context. And in our suite, we can start adding expectations. So let's start by adding the expectation we already created. And we'll add one more here. And let's say we'll add an expectation for the minimum value of that same column. So call expect column min to be between. We'll pass in the same column, passenger count. And for the passenger count minimum, we'll say that the minimum value should be 1. There should be at least 1 passenger. Sorry, the method name is add expectation, not just add. All right, cool. So we have 2 expectations now in our suite. Running the validation is just as easy as it was before. Instead of passing in now in a single expectation in our validate method, we can pass in a suite. And so we'll run it again. And as you can see, we now are checking 2 expectations on our data. We have the same expectation as we have from before, expect column max to be between. And then we also have our new expectation, expect column min to be between. And in this case, both are passing. Our minimum values are 1, and both expectations are passing. And you can see here we have, a bit of metadata as well. We have the number of evaluated expectations, successful and unsuccessful. All right, so those are our first 2 examples. We've created one expectation and run it. We've created a suite of expectations, added 2 different expectations to that suite. We've run a suite on a batch of data. Now let's talk about validation definitions. Validation definitions are a way that we can tie a suite of expectations to a batch definition. It also then allows us to use the validation definition inside of a checkpoint. And a checkpoint is really important because for those of you who may not be familiar, it allows us to do things like run actions on a given validation. So actions could be something like notifying us via email or Slack, or in our example, we're going to be updating our data docs. But based on the result of our expectations, then you might be wanting to notify yourself or maybe your team that expectations may have failed, or maybe that they've passed. And so this is how you would set that up. What we'll do here is we'll start by setting up a validation definition to tie our suite to our batch definition. So that's quite simple. We'll call gx.validation definition, and we'll pass in a few different parameters. First, we'll give this a name. Let's call this VD. We'll specify the batch definition. In this case, we have our existing batch definition. And we'll specify our suite. And again, we already have a suite, and there's no reason why we can't use that as well. Cool. So we've built our validation definition. And actually, if we wanted to just run that validation, we could just do so just as we had from before by calling the run method on our validation definition. So I'll show you that quickly. Just as we saw from before, we have our expectations running on the same set of data. Now, so now we have a validation definition. Let's set up a checkpoint. Now, our checkpoint is, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to use our validation definition in order to trigger some actions. The action we're going to trigger here today is called the update data docs action. And in order to do so, we need to do a quick import to have the update data docs action running. So from great expectations, dot checkpoint actions import update data docs. Okay. And let's create our checkpoint. So our checkpoint can be defined by calling context.checkpoints.add checkpoint. And now let's build out our parameters. Just like with our other objects that we've created here, we'll start by giving our checkpoint a name. Let's call it checkpoint. We'll pass in a list of validation definitions. And in our case, we'll pass in the one that we've just created. So we have our validation definition. And then finally, we'll pass in a list of actions as well. And our actions here is our update data docs. And the update data docs action requires a name as well. So we'll give this a name of Let's call this update data docs. Hopefully I've spelled everything correctly here. Cool. All right, so we've created a checkpoint. We've tied now our validation definition to an action. And when we run this checkpoint, our data docs will be updated. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll just call, let's start this in a new cell just to be sure. We'll call checkpoint.run, which runs our checkpoint. And now let's open up our data docs to make sure that it has in fact worked as we expected. And there we go. We have the validation that we just ran. And if I click in, sure enough, we have our 2 expectations that we added to our suite. They ran on the same set of data as we defined from earlier. And just as before, they are both passing with the same observed values. So as you can see, this has been greatly simplified. Our validation definition can be defined with one simple call. Our checkpoint, same kind of thing, with passing in just 3 parameters, a name, a list of validation definitions, and a list of actions. We've defined our checkpoint. We run it, and for our example, we're opening data docs. If you had actions set up, for email or Slack alerts, those would have been fired off as well. Okay, so there's one last thing I want to show off for you today. Earlier on, when I mentioned our batch definition, we created a batch definition for the whole table by calling add batch definition whole table. There are a few other ways that you can define a batch definition as well, and that's by slicing your data based on a specific column within your data. So let's start by creating a new object here, monthly BD, and we're now going to create a batch definition for the same set of data, but sliced by month. So we'll call asset.add batch definition. And instead of add batch definition whole table, I'm going to call add batch definition monthly. And as you might expect, this would be now a monthly batch definition. So I'll give this a name. Again, I'll just call this monthly BD. And the column that we want to use to divide our data, and in our case, this will be pickup. Pickup is a column within our database that specifies, the date and time for a given taxi ride where the passengers were picked up. Nice. Okay, so we have our new batch definition. Let's create a new validation definition. We'll name this monthly BD. The data will now be linked to our monthly batch definition. And we'll again tie it to the exact same suite of expectations as we had from before. All right, and let's run our validation definition. So we've now run our validation definition on our monthly set of data. And by default, when you call vd.run, it will use the latest set of data that you have, or latest set of data that you've divided your data on. So in this case, this will be the latest possible month in that set of data. However, there's one more way that you can run this data, and that's if you want to specify the specific month that you want to check. So doing that is also quite simple. All you have to do is run vd.run, and instead of just calling run, you can pass in a set of or some batch parameters. And batch parameters simply takes in a dictionary of parameters. In this case, we'll call year, team, And we'll say the month is January. All right. And so we'll run that. And this is the way. So if you want to specify the specific month or year, for example, that you want to check for your data, you can do so at runtime by using our batch parameters in the run parameters. Okay, so I've gone on now for quite a little bit. I do want to be sensitive of our time here. But as you can see, I really want to highlight how simple it is now to get going. 9 lines of code, you're running a validation. If you want to set up a suite, it's just as easy as calling context.suites.add and then adding your expectations to the suite. You can either run validate directly on a batch of data, or you can set up simple validations, tie that to a checkpoint, and then run the checkpoint. It's really as easy as that. If you have any more questions, please feel free to throw them in chat. I know there's been lots going on in the chat already, and thank you to my team for answering all the questions that we have in there. We encourage you to explore our documentation. Our documentation has been widely updated. Thank you to our technical writing team for updating our docs and our engineering team for helping out there. We're really excited that we've hit this milestone. We're really excited to see what you do with it as well. And if you have any questions or comments, please visit our discourse. You can see a community of our users there who will be able to help answer some of our questions. Of course, check out our GX Cloud if you're interested in GX Cloud, and check out our workshops as well. I will throw it now back to Molly to wrap things up.
Well, actually, I mean, we have some time for questions if we want to open it up a bit for people to ask questions. There's already been some questions going on in the chat.
Cool.
But how does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds good. I'm going to start right off at the top. So where does the context get stored? So I specified a file mode, so this would get stored in my local installation of GX. But if you wanted to just use a temporary data context, you could just use get context. If you have an existing configuration, though, it would reference that. But you can also specify something like cloud if you're using a cloud context. You can take a look at our docs for other ways that you can use our contexts as well. Is there a way to natively use GX Core inside Snowpark? I believe, yep, Rachel, thank you for answering. There's auto discovery of Snowflake as within Snowpark is an interesting idea, but we don't currently have that ability. Is there a reference document on where exactly the difference between 0.18 and GX Core is? And yes, a migration document would be helpful. Yep, we're working on a migration guide. We very much know that people will want to migrate as soon as possible. So we're working on that. Look forward to that. I'm sure as soon as that is out, we'll make an announcement both in Discourse and our community Slack. So look out for that, but we are actively working on that. How do we share this data doc to downstream users? If you're using Datadog specifically, Rachel House has provided a great resource for that. You can put it in a hosted file system or a cloud store. But the most powerful way to share results of validations would definitely be through GX Cloud. GX Cloud allows you to do stuff like have permission access to your configuration. So you can have view-only access or editor access or admin access to various users. And then you can then have a shared understanding of your results. And that way you can have people kind of log in from all different places as well and not have to worry about setting up access rights to a specific cloud store that you might have. I see that GX creates temp tables in my data source when running expectations. And is there any way to redirect where those are created? Bill has already answered this, but unfortunately, we currently cannot configure where those temp tables are created. And it looks like the rest of that thread has been answered as well. And Molly, please just cut me off if you want to take the time back. When
And
will
also-
batching be enabled for simple text field? Data's cool, but we want to batch by tenant. Yep, so the current recommendation is to make a view with partitions based on non-date fields. So we can't currently do this out of the box, but if you create a view of your data, that will hopefully do what you're after. Can we skip the validation part and just run the expectation suites and actually get the result? So, yep, as Bill said, just as we did to begin the demonstration, if you just call batch.validate by either passing in a single expectation or a suite, you can immediately get the results. Great work on documentation. I would like to see detailed examples for different data sources like BigQuery, Snowflake, DBX. Thanks for the feedback. We're always looking for improvements, so yeah, we'll be working on that. There's lots of answers happening, so my chat is kind of jumping around. Apologies for that.
Yeah, I think a new one just, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
A new one just came in that hasn't been answered in the thread yet.
Okay, at the very bottom here. Previously, there was a process called data profiling that generates a recommended expectation suite. Is that still working in the same way? I'm going to maybe throw this to our engineering team to answer so that I don't say the wrong thing. Does anybody from our engineering team want to field that one?
Not from engineering, but I can add what we've published on previous blogs. So my understanding is, well, data profiling assistants that we had have gone away for now. And so we are currently reevaluating how best to reintroduce profiling as a capability. So profiling itself is not going away, but the data assistants specifically, I believe we have deprecated and do not intend to pursue those further.
Right. Yeah, are there any other questions that haven't been answered in the thread that people want to ask before we kind of wrap things up? Do some final, I have a few more things to share, but just wanted to check and see if there's any last questions. Okay. Oh.
One last question here. How to run expectations on daily incremental data? So I believe, let's just take a look here. And while I'm looking that up, if anyone from engineering has the answer, you can just feel free to speak up.
By daily incremental data, do you mean like you want to just run it on like 1 hour of that day or the latest hour, or you want it to run on like from the beginning of the day till now? Like what does, like you want to aggregate the day as time goes on, or you just want specific segments from the day? Does that make sense as a clarifying question? Because right now there's not an ability to just run on a specific hour. There is if you just run it like for the latest day, you'll get whatever current data is in there. So if you just want to like run a checkpoint over and over again, you'll see more data being validated as more data comes in. I guess that's the answers for those two different scenarios.
Cool, thanks, Bill.
Well, I
Great.
stopped
Looks like that
sharing
answered
here,
it.
so.
Okay. Amazing. Well, if people have additional questions, please, jump in the GX discourse forum and share them with us. Also, we're very excited for feedback. Or if you find any issues, please, or if you find anything that you think is a bug, please submit an issue. Yeah. Thanks so much. And thanks so much, Nevin. That was a fantastic demo. And the engineers and Devrel in the chat, fielding questions. Okay, I will share my screen. I have just a couple more announcements. Okay, should be seeing community support slide. So some final announcements here are, I wanted to talk a little bit about community support. So as we move forward, our team will be concentrating on supporting and enhancing GX Core in subsequent releases. If any of you had an older issue in GitHub, you might have seen that we closed out older issues that were related to earlier versions. And but if the issue is still relevant for 1.0, please resubmit. We'd love to know if it's still a problem. Additionally, to bolster our support efforts, we are planning on spending more time in our community channels and answering your questions. So I just wanted to make it clear here how we are prioritizing supporting issues. So number one will be GitHub issues and PRs. Second priority will be discourse or questions posted into discourse. And then only after that will be questions posted into Slack. So what this means for you is your questions will be answered more quickly and looked at faster if you post in discourse rather than if you post in Slack. So keep that in mind. It would be worth maybe creating a Great Expectations discourse login if you don't have one already. And you can find more details on where to get support at the Get Support page. And there's specific details on what is GX supported versus community supported in the integration support policy page. It outlines which things, which ones things GX are supported or which things we're going to need to lean on the community for. For which we, encourage community-driven assistance. So next thing I wanted to talk about as well is we are hosting a Reddit AMA next week on Wednesday. And this is an opportunity to ask us any data quality questions that you may have. These could be about GX specifically. My screen is blurry. Let's try this again. There we go. This can be about GX specifically. For example, the recent GX Core 1.0 release, or about GX Cloud, or it could be about data quality at large. GX co-founders Abe Gong and James Campbell, who are also the CEO and CTO respectively, will be ready to answer your questions, as well as some other folks at GX. So it's posted now. Feel free to submit questions ahead of time and join us live on September 4th at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, 4 p.m. UTC. Okay, now just some standard closing announcements I have for you here are that we have some open roles. We are hiring for a senior software engineer as well as a senior technical writer here at GX. If this sounds like something you'd be excited about, we'd love to hear from you. Please apply. Additionally, If you haven't tried GX Cloud yet, you can do so for free at app.greatexpectations.io. And speaking of getting started with cloud, you can, I just realized there's one date that was on here that was yesterday, but there's 2 more in September. We're currently holding workshops to help folks get started with cloud, focused on either getting started with Postgres or with Snowflake. So the next workshop is on September 10th, and we'll be focused on getting started with Postgres, and then another one on the 17th, focused on Snowflake. More workshops are always being added, so if these don't work for you for some reason, feel free to check back. We always want your feedback. Please reach out to us anytime on Discourse or via email. You can contact product. And to keep your calendar up to date with future community events, make sure you follow the GX community calendar by going to greatexpectations.io/meetup and click the follow the calendar button. And we love highlighting community members at community meetups. So if you're interested and have an idea, reach out to me at molly.pettit on the GX Discourse or at Molly Pettit on the GX community Slack. And that's all we had for you today. I hope you all enjoyed seeing a deep dive into 1.0. Again, have more questions, please share them with us on Discourse. If you have more feedback, please share them with us. Yeah, and thanks so much for everyone for presenting. We will see you all next time.